we are an Islamic Republic and we shall remain an Islamic Republic. They hadn't spoken in the last 2-3 days. So they are more confident now that they have managed to more or less get a control over it, except maybe a little bit somewhere in Tehran and so on and so forth. According to me, probably overplaying its hand. It realizes its time is limited. There are demonstrations in Israel also. There is a corruption case against the prime minister. They also realize the midterm elections are coming up in US. So even President Trump, after November, may be a weaker president, not able to help Israel as much. Danger is that if this time Iran is attacked and they have rearmed, they've got new missiles and they are threatening, and they've got about 500 or 1,000 kilometer range missiles. They said if we are attacked this time, we'll directly attack the American bases. Last time they had a symbolic attack.
Massive protests in Iran. The Trump administration has threatened action. President Trump himself is saying he's making a determination on what to do next. But how's that really going to impact India? A very close neighbor, also a very important country when it comes to connectivity in this entire region. To discuss this and more, I'm being joined by Ambassador Singh. He's served in Iran. He knows the region very well. Ambassador Singh, thank you so much for joining me. Let's begin with the situation on the ground. Your reading on how are things looking. You've tracked Iran for a very long time, but this is unprecedented.
No, there have been protests before. There were 2 or 3 times. Once there were protests over the election results where people felt that the election had been manipulated, and economic distress has been there. So when economic distress combines with some additional factor, people have turned out, even in the past. This time it was felt that maybe this will come and go, but then they intensified. And I think one thing which is now coming into over the last 24 hours, it seems that the Iranian regime has managed to control them. That's why the foreign minister came out and he said that we will be lifting the restriction on the internet. They wouldn't have done that unless they feel that some kind of normalcy is returning. Though there are all kinds of videos which are available, but there's a lot of disinformation, a lot of propaganda which is going around. But essentially, and also the president of Iran has spoken up and said, we are an Islamic Republic and we shall remain an Islamic Republic. They hadn't spoken in the last 2-3 days. So they are more confident now that they have managed to more or less get a control over it, except maybe a little bit somewhere in Tehran and so on and so forth. What they've done is I think they've managed to grab a lot of leaders of the group. They claim they belong to Mossad. Now that is believable because even the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio in a social media post said, well, Mossad is there shoulder to shoulder with this. So he had conceded this. And there are weapons because in Iran, look, we must remember that the ethnic Persian population is only 60%. They're not 100% Persian, ethnically Persian. You've got almost 16% are Azeris, northwest, which touches Azerbaijan. And then you got 10% are Kurds. And Kurds are divided between Iran, Iraq, and Turkey. And that is where Turkey and Iran are drawn together because both feel threatened by the secessionist tendencies of the Kurdish population. Now, the reports were that there were some armed people of Kurdish origin were pushed from the Iraqi side into Iran, and weapons have been used. And that's where a lot of policemen have lost lives. So I think there was, obviously, it was in Iran. Israel was supporting it. I don't think the Americans were directly involved. Americans are so distracted because President Trump has got a new thing on his agenda every day. It began with Venezuela, which is still not fully complete. Then he claims he is now the ruler of Venezuela.
Acting president.
Yeah, then came in Greenland. So you got a thing going on between his allies and NATO and him. So for him, I think it comes at third place. Iran is important. So he is supposed to have a meeting tomorrow about his Iranian options. And then last night on his plane, he said the Iranians have approached us to discuss the nuclear deal. As you know, he's the one who withdrew during his first term Americans from what was called the JCPOA. It was
Yes.
the permanent five members in Germany. We've got the German Chancellor here today. I'm sure Prime Minister will discuss the situation with him and how the Europeans are looking at it. So there was a nuclear deal which was struck during President Obama's time, and President Trump withdrew from it during his
Right.
first term. So essentially, I think the differences are that whereas that deal allowed IAEA supervised um, continuation of the civilian nuclear program of Iran, what President Trump is saying is that you just shut down everything. You will not have any nuclear facilities, whether civilian, supervised, unsupervised. And I think that's been a block. And that's where I think President Netanyahu of Israel is also prompting America, because he's
That's
saying
right.
just completely decapitate Iran.
There
Because
was a meeting. There was a meeting between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. It does seem like, all this uh, turn of events took place after that very important meeting. But if you could zoom into the region a little and explain to us, should there be an action against Iran? How much of a threat would that be for Israel? Because the prompt action of Tehran would be to hit Israel.
exactly. You see, I think Israel is, according to me, probably overplaying its hand. It realizes its time is limited. There are demonstrations in Israel also. There is a corruption case against the prime minister. They also realize the midterm elections are coming up in US. So even President Trump, after November, may be a weaker president, not able to help Israel as much. So they having completely eliminated not completely eliminated, but completely weakened Hamas, weakened Hezbollah. That means the surrogates of Iran in the region have been cut off from Iran or weakened substantially. But Israel is still not fully satisfied without moving towards giving Palestine or negotiating for a Palestinian state. They want to take it to the other extreme, which is now eliminate Iran as a threat by removing the regime. Then it becomes completely dominated by Israel and America. But one thing which has happened is that Abraham Accords, which is what President Trump created during his first term, and they were
Mhm.
supposed to draw in all the moderate Arab countries of the Gulf to normalize relations with Israel. That has not happened. In fact, we've seen a division develop now between Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates
That's right.
over South Yemen, over the Gulf of Aden, over Sudan, over Libya. So there's a division now, even amongst the conservative allies of the US. It is not a united GCC. And many of them, and China has come out openly in support of Iran. And that's where India comes in. I mean, where do we stand in this? Because
Absolutely.
we've had diplomatic relations with Israel since '91, but Prime Minister Modi has moved it to a very personal and highly personalized relationship between him and Netanyahu. Now, the problem with that is that, and we've come out with statements, but you can always see there's a little tilt towards Israel
That's
in
right.
that.
Ambassador
And
Singh, I'd like you to focus on that very important aspect of India's ties with Israel and Iran. But before that, you made a very important point in terms of how the world is looking at the situation in Iran. And if you could first just focus and explain to our viewers the problems India could face should Iran or should this regime fall. What are the problems that India could really face over here?
no, I think change of regime, if it is not terribly disorderly, is all right, because we don't believe in interfering in the internal. Because you would remember when there was the Iran-Iraq war in the 1980s, India continued to have relations with both, and that is where non-alignment helped.
Mhm.
But when you become too close to one side, and this is where we signed the India-Europe uh, link, C and over UAE and Saudi Arabia link between India and Europe through Israel. The problem is then you get drawn very close to Emirates. And Emirates itself is now being singled out as a country too close to Israel. So those divisions are at last playing up. And if we are seen as closer to that group, then it is not helpful. in dealing with Iran or dealing with the situation, because it takes away your ability to mediate, uh, your ability to tell them that please don't do it like this, do it like that. So now we have no option but to sit back and just let it play out. The danger is that if this time Iran is attacked and they have rearmed, they've got new missiles, and they are threatening, and they've got about 500 or 1,000-kilometer range missiles. They said if we are attacked this time, will directly attack the American bases. Last time they had a symbolic attack on one of the on the American base in Qatar, but this time they said we'll go after them fully. And Israel also realizes even last time the Israeli missiles broke through their Iron Dome, they penetrated it. And Iran is a much larger country than Israel. Israel can't afford to have 500 missiles or 300 missiles fired at them. No Iron Dome will stop them. And when you have two major cities, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, the possibility of damage to you or to your government is much greater than you're attacking Iran, which is a huge country, and their mountains and their deserts. So you can try taking out senior leadership of IRGC and the regime, but it's an unequal battle unless you're going to drop a nuclear bomb on them, which is just not possible. And that is the other danger, that Iran, nobody knows what was the final effect of the bombs that Americans dropped on the nuclear facilities of Iran the last time around. Were they able to take away enriched uranium in advance? They put it away and they've been moving quickly. They would have alternative facilities. They are just a step away from having a nuclear device. And the lesson, unfortunately, is that if you have a nuclear device like North Korea, then the Americans talk to you nicely and they want to shake hands with you. But if you don't, then you're Saddam Hussein, you're Iran, they come and bomb you. Now, if that is the precedent you set, then you're essentially saying that you are safer with a nuclear device than without a nuclear device. And I think that's where it is tilting. It's a good time where India should be stepping in to say we need to talk. But then, as I said, the leverage is low at the moment because the divided GCC, divided countries there, and we don't know what President Trump is doing. And we have our own problems with President Trump, as the new US ambassador is explained yesterday and today. We still haven't got a trade deal, and we still have President Trump kind of provoking and goading us every now and then.
Right. Now, coming to the bilateral that you were talking about, Ambassador Singh, we're looking at a scenario where India has to make a choice. It has to take a decision. It needs to take a position because Iran is very important. In such a scenario, where do you see the Modi administration? How do you see it react? And what should India be doing?
No, considering how they position themselves, as I explained, there's really nothing much they can do except privately talk to them out. If there is, you would like, because you don't want the disorder to spread to the Gulf. We got 8 million Indians there. They are a second, third largest trading partner. They are access to Central Asia. And then oil price will shoot up. And that's the last thing India wants. And probably also opposite of what President Trump wants. That's why he's trying to capture the oil in Venezuela to have the price of oil drop so that he can bring pressure on Russia. Now, many of these things are now contradictory. So I don't know, you cannot open 3 fronts or 4 fronts at the same time, which is what the US is doing. Because they'll not be able to handle all of them at the same time. And that's why it's being said that you don't have any aircraft carriers in the region. If you're going to be attacking Iran, last time they had a couple of aircraft carriers, which means a number of planes available. Now they'll only have to fly from Diego Garcia, which is far away. You can get bombers coming in, not fighters. So where does India stand in this? I think India has no option but to just do what they've been doing, which is just advocate diplomacy, advocate please talk, and generally keep quiet. And hope that this does not spiral into a Gulf-wide confrontation where you have then implications which are very serious for India. But there's little that we can do to either stop America and Israel. Israel we can speak to. Prime Minister just spoken to Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think we should speak to them and tell them, back off, guys. This is not the way to do it. You can't be going around changing regimes. And this is not Maduro's regime in Venezuela. This is a complete system in which you have the clerics and the IRGC and the military, and the systems run down to the village level. It's got its own system, and they have elections. You can say controlled elections, but they have a kind of democracy, a consultation of the people. Their problem at the moment is economic. because of which the people have turned against the regime, which the outsiders are trying to play upon. But I think their attempt may not have been successful because the first week or 10 days are extremely important. I think the Iranians seem to have been able to control it unless it spurts up again.
Okay. And finally, before I let you go, Ambassador Singh, you just spoke about allies, partners, and a lot of condemnation coming in from China. Condemnation aside, do you see them actually stand by Iran should it come to, should the situation come to a pass where Iran would need that help? Because we've not seen that help come through even through the economic collapse. The fact that Iran has been struggling so badly, and we've not seen a China or a Russia come to the rescue on that front as well. How do you see the allies and partners really help Iran? Because if Iran falls, whilst it would be bad for India, it will be very bad for China.
No, the China-Russia combination, they've been helping them. Russians have been, all kinds of military planes have been flying in over the last few weeks, a number of them per day, bringing in new weapons, upgrading their system, their defense, essentially their anti-missile, anti-plane, anti-missile system, so that last time they lost control completely of their skies. Have they done better this time? There were reports they're buying Chinese planes, latest jets. That was always a weakness for the Iranians. Their planes were old. They were mostly from Shah's time, and they were not up to the mark at all. So they've been rebuilding the air force. Maybe that's also why Israel is in a hurry. They feel that if Iran is able to rebuild quickly, it'll become more and more difficult to deal with them. But Chinese have been buying their oil. So Chinese have captured that market, both for their products as well as for buying the oil. The problem arises when the oil has to go via the sea, Indian Ocean, and all. And like in case of Venezuela, the US may start disrupting that supply. But the Chinese have come out openly because they realize that Iran is crucial for them because they have links to Europe, they have links from Central Asia into Iran, and it gives them access to the Gulf and the Indian Ocean. The same reason that they went to Gwadar. They also very much their presence is there in Iran. So for India, I don't think the Chinese will not militarily come and help them. There's nothing they can do. But I think they would be probably working with Russia to have the latest weapons come to them and defensive weapons where they can defend. But it may be a bit too early. I don't think Iranians are fully equipped. And that is why they hurry to do the regime change. But we've seen what happened in Venezuela. It's not a regime change. It's just a change of the president. The regime is still the same. And the US oil companies are refusing to go and work there. The US president is not threatening one of the US American companies because it gave a public statement that we can't work in that country. The conditions are normal. Then US has told American citizens to leave that country because there are all kinds of private groups with guns which are threatening them. If America could not do it in Iraq, could not do it in Afghanistan, now I don't think it's that easy to do it in Venezuela, that you get a regime, but then President Trump has himself said, the new NSS, new strategy, says we are unconcerned about what kind of a government you have. And that's why President Trump even made a statement that I don't think Raza Pahlavi can run the country. So he's probably trying to, what I call, use the Venezuelan system and hope that some IRGC commanders are able to push out the supreme leader, reduce the role of the clergy, and have a military leadership, a military dictatorship which they can work with, which gives them access to oil, to business, and then they lift the sanctions. That seems to be the plan.
So according to you, sir, you're saying that the internal turmoil for now has been contained by the regime. But if not, will that impact India in terms of trade, in terms of doing business, in terms of connectivity? And where does India then draw the line?
See, connectivity is important, but not critical. But what is critical for us is that access to the Gulf, to oil, our citizens there are not threatened. So as long as it is just Iran, we can manage it. Even if the sanctions, we've been managing despite the sanctions. Chabahar is there, even the Chinese are there, we are there. We'll keep developing. The Americans, they get angry, we can go a bit slow, then you can wait till, but that is no solution. You don't want that. I think essentially Israel is pushing to get total dominance in this area. And it doesn't look like it's going to be possible. But it remains to be seen. There may be cards that we are not that are not visible, like in case of Venezuela. We may just find they'll. If anything happens, I don't think it'll be a complete overthrow of the regime. It may be a reshuffle, like in Venezuela, if at all. Though that also seems unlikely.
Okay. On that note, Ambassador K.C. Singh, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.